We recently renovated our Lego room, and aside from a lot more storage, the focal point were these display cases behind me. Now, these are Moduspace display cases, and in this video, we are going to review them, the cases, the risers, and importantly, those LED strip lights. At the end of the video, we'll tell you our thoughts on Moduspace, including some of the pros of having them, as well as a couple of the cons to these next level display cases. If you head over to the Moduspace website, you can peruse the different types of cases available, ranging from those you can mount on a wall, those you can place in a corner, or even those that you can stack on top of one another. Now, the different product lines you see here correspond to different facets of the display cases, including depths and heights. The key is to plan ahead. Take your measurements, identify what your goal is, and set your budget. In our case, Brian Wong over at Moduspace hooked us up with 3 types of products: display cases, risers, and LED strip lights. So that's what these reviews are going to focus on. Once everything was shipped, we tracked our cases as they came across the continental US. When they arrived, some of the boxes were a bit damaged. However, don't let that dissuade you from making any purchases from Moduspace. Check out the internal packaging. There is a lot of foam, a lot of inserts, plastic corner protectors, and paper coverings for the acrylic screens. Perhaps the worst thing I could say about the packaging is that 1 or 2 of our back or top panels were a little frayed on one corner. And in the end, we had no problems getting those into the metal frames and assembled. In fact, you can't even tell there's anything wrong with them when you look at the final result. Inside the boxes come all of the parts, slotted tightly into these foam inserts. Each of the DF cases we got, which included the DF120, DF60, and DF130, had the same setup. You have a diagram with all of the parts and pieces that are included in each box, as was a bag of screws and Allen wrenches. Interestingly, the tool screw bag was the same for each package, regardless of if you needed all of the little parts. This meant that quite a few extras were left over, but that's actually a good thing in my opinion, as you have some extras to use in the future if you want them. The LED strip lights came in a separate box, with each light placed in a separate bag. Inside those came a light, a power cord, and a bag with various components that help you stick them into the cases securely. I will note that some of the other parts, like conduits that are important for the LED lights, came in the main boxes. We covered a lot of the display case assembly in our room renovation video, but I do want to highlight a couple of key components. First, make sure you review the instructions before getting started and have them available as you build. You wouldn't build an expensive Lego set without the instructions, and the same applies here. You begin the assembly by constructing the frame using metal bars. The bars have slits on the sides that allow you to slide in the side, back, and top panels. It's not difficult to put them together as long as you pay attention to the instructions. For the DF120, you slide in 2 back panels and 2 top panels. The DF160 is half the length, so it has just 1 back and 1 top panel. And for us, the DF130 is the same size as the DF120. You just flip it vertically instead of horizontally. There were 3 frustrating parts to the assembly process. The first one is that you put together one side, the top, back, and the bottom of the frame, 1 bar at a time, before attaching the entirety of the last side. This requires you to A, get everything right before putting it on, which didn't always happen for me. I had to go back and fix some things, and B, it was a little bit finicky. You have to leave more space for the screws before putting on the full side and align everything prior to tightening the screws. The second frustrating part was that the screws left some black smudges on my fingers, and given that one side of the panels is white, resulted in some smudges transferring to those. Fortunately, these are sides that are not seen in the display, so it doesn't make a difference. Just want to make sure you wash your hands. And third, the white label stickers on the back and top panels didn't always come off cleanly right away. Some white adhesive could smudge on them, but it wasn't too difficult to rub that off, and it doesn't show up when you look at the display. These frustrations, though, are very, very minimal to the overall satisfaction of putting these cases together. In terms of time requirements, it took us about 20 to 30 minutes to put together the DF120s, about the same for the DF60, maybe closer to 20 minutes, and closer to 40 to 45 minutes for the DF130, and that's because there are some internal shelving that requires some additional work and making sure everything's level before you finalize that display cabinet. So it wasn't a huge time commitment per shelf, and honestly, they weren't all that bad to put together, and they look fantastic in the end. One huge recommendation I want to pass along to you is know how you are going to power your LED strip lights before you assemble your cases. In our instance, we just have one outlet along that back wall where our cabinets are, and I knew that wasn't going to work for 8 lights, so I ended up getting a couple of power strips, placing one on each side of our display cases, and plugging some of those power strips in there. Now there's plenty of length in the strip light power cords, so it's really just a matter of running the lines through the conduits, down one of the grooves in the back, and then out a small slot of the case, and connecting it to the power. The result is a clean approach with the cords and not a lot of dangling wires. Another tip is to get these zip ties with small adhesive squares so that you can avoid having the light connectors dangled down from the top of each case. They're not expensive on Amazon, and all you have to do is wrap the zip tie around any slack you have in the connecting cables and cut the excess zip tie. Also, when you place the conduit along the top of the case, as you see here, leave about an inch or so of space between it and the front of the Moduspace cabinet. The power connector is a little bit thicker than the conduit itself, and thus needs a little bit of space to fit in. Finally, you lay the bottom piece of the display case, which is a solid wood lined on the top with a black felt or cloth material. You also want to peel the protective layers from the front panel and affix it to the front of the case, which have magnets, which is going to keep it in place. You also have a screw that comes with it that you can remove easily to take the front panels off and put different sets on your shelves. The nice thing is these front panels are extremely sturdy, especially with the screws, yet easily enough to be removed that you can update your display anytime you want. The result is an incredible display setup. Depending on how much space you have and what you get, you'll have plenty of depth and length for your large Lego sets. The all black bottom, top, and back provide a sleek look, and most sets will pop out with that LED lighting. One drawback is that some of the smaller sets can feel a little bit lost in the DF cases given the excess room above them. Yet some recent sets like Barrador are too tall to fit in the normal DFs, and that's not a huge problem as there aren't too many of those sets released each year, or probably in your collection, but you'll want to plan ahead and get the right unit like the DF130 to make sure you can place some of the tall sets in the cabinets. The pros to having the Moduspace display cases are behind me. I mean, you can tell clearly that they look fantastic, and you can fit a lot of your large sets in there. Not only that, but the front panels allow you to keep your sets dust-free and protected from any sort of unwanted hands or animals, depending on what you have at home. Now, the time investment that you make in your display cases is all front-loaded in putting them together. Once you put them together, you can basically rest easy and make sure that you are satisfied with your collection. Of course, you can customize things from time to time. You can get additional accessories that are available on the Moduspace website, and you can upgrade your display cases as you see fit. Now, one comparison that I would make is with the Billy shelves from IKEA, which of course are much less expensive, but I think don't look nearly as good and aren't as flexible as the Moduspace cabinets. For instance, the Billy shelves, which we have down in our basement, really only fit one base plate in terms of depth. Here with the Moduspace DF series, you can get 2 base plates of depth in those, which allow you to store larger sets and not worry about overhang. Rivendell is a good example of this. You can see in our collection how we've got Rivendell on the Moduspace shelf, but over here in this video we took earlier, we had it on the Billy shelf, and there is quite a bit of overhang. Same thing applies with the recent Ninjago tournament Temple City. One of the strengths of the Billy shelves are the adjustable shelves that come with it. With the exception of the middle shelf that is hard baked into it because of the structural components, you can raise and lower them as your collection warrants. Now, it's different with the Moduspace cabinets. You can get shelving, but you want to think about that ahead of time, which again, places priority on planning ahead. So, plan ahead. So what are the cons when it comes to the Moduspace shelves? Well, the first one I would say could be shipping time. If you go to the website, on the front there at the very top, it tells you that orders that are placed now will be shipped in Q2 of 2025. So they are being transparent with what it takes in terms of shipping time, but some people may not want to wait all that long. The second con that I can see for people is it's much more complex to put together the Moduspace cabinets compared to a Billy shelf or other IKEA type furniture. This means you're going to have to follow the instructions. It's not going to be the same kind of construction as you would with some of those other prefab shelving units, and you might get a little bit frustrated if you're not following the instructions. But again, most people expect there to be a little bit of all of that, no matter what display shelf you get, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Other than that, one of the other nitpicks I might have with Moduspace is that they do send you a cleaning cloth for your front panels, and I didn't find that they worked all that well. They got very staticky and ended up attracting dust and hair rather than wiping it away, although maybe I was doing it wrong. I would recommend finding something else that cleans acrylic panels, something you might use for eyeglasses or something else that would work well. All told, these Moduspace display cases are very much worth the investment. Even though there are a couple of small issues with them, they are, like I said, very small in the grand scheme of things. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, well, we don't have a YouTube channel where we need to have a good backdrop behind us, so why get these? I'll give you 3 reasons why you might explore getting Moduspace cabinets. Number 1, they are very, very high end. They are very, very strong in terms of quality. They are not composite board shelves. They don't have a thin cardboard backdrop like Billy shelves or bookshelves or other things. They are strong, they are hefty, and they're going to last a long time. They are indeed a premium quality product, and we found that across every spectrum that we saw with them so far. Number 2, they look really good. I mean, check this out behind us. They look fantastic. We love them. In fact, we had some family over for Thanksgiving here in the United States. They came in and they were blown away by just how impressive they looked, especially with the LED lights. So they are going to up your display presence, especially if you do a lot of work in the room where you have your Lego sets on display. Third, it's going to protect your collection. Now, I know that a lot of fans want to keep certain sets dust-free, and I'm with you on that. But when it comes to other things like pets, like kids, visitors, you may want to have stuff behind that front panel so that people can't reach in, knock it over, and damage things, especially some of your rare minifigs or Lego sets. And the Moduspace cabinets are going to definitely do that, especially when compared to other options. Lastly, we want to thank Brian Wong over at Moduspace for helping us out with this display. It was fantastic working with them, and we are so grateful that Moduspace is willing to support some of the smaller YouTube channels out there. So if you are looking to up your display case game or protect your Lego sets, or even anything else like Hot Toys or something like that, make sure you check out Moduspace. You can click on the affiliate link in the description below if you want to check those out. Thanks for watching, and always remember to keep building together.